Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of That's a Wrap. My name is Anthony Gentry, and I'm so glad you've joined me today. Um, Good amount of things to talk about today. We got three trailers and a movie. You can guess what movie it is. Five Nights at Freddy's. Yes, the long-awaited film. Um, but first, just like last week, I want to start out with a bit of news. Um, it's pretty sad. Matthew Perry has passed away. For those of you who don't know, he was one of the stars of Friends. He played Chandler, I believe, and he was only, what, I think 54. It was an apparent drowning. Not much details have come out. But yeah, I just wanted to say, I haven't seen Friends. I'm not a huge fan of it. I've only seen a few episodes here and there, so I'm not like a Friends fan in the least sense. But Matthew Perry, despite that, he was still such an influential figure for like the 90s and the early 2000s. I remember the main thing I remember him from is 17 Again, which was a Zac Efron comedy where Matthew Perry plays an older version of Zac Efron and he becomes his 17-year-old self. That was even a remake of, I think, a Jerry Lewis movie. But yeah, it's very sad. He was very young. I know he had a lot of battles with addiction, um, and he was clean. So I don't know if that played a role in it. I don't want to speculate on anything, but I just wanted to pay my respects to that and just say rest in peace. And yeah, it's very sad. But let's move on to some lighter topics. I got a few trailers to talk about today. The first trailer I want to talk about came out today, actually, just a few hours ago as I'm recording, and that's The Fall Guy. So this is a movie starring Ryan Gosling, Emily Blunt, directed by not Guy Ritchie, but the guy who did Bullet Train and Deadpool 2. I'm blanking on his name. I'm gonna look it up as I talk. But yeah, this movie follows a stunt double who is in love with his director collaborator that he's been on with a few movies, even though a stunt double follows the actor and not a director. But who cares about that? David Leitch is the guy I'm looking for. And this is a rom-com, mystery, action movie, comedy. It's a lot of things. It feels like a mixed bag for sure. I'm not a big fan of this trailer, if you can't tell. It looks pretty cliche. It reminded me a lot of The Nice Guys, which also stars Ryan Gosling trying to figure out this mystery, but in a way where The Nice Guys had a voice. It knew what it was. And this movie doesn't feel like it knows what it is, and it's trying to do a lot of different things. And this movie also feels like it's trying to harken back to The Nice Guys with Ryan Gosling being in this over the top comedic role, but then putting in this love interest subplot where it kind of feels like it could be Romancing the Stone, The Lost City kind of vibes, but then it's only Ryan Gosling going on this adventure. I don't know what to think about this. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of this trailer. It didn't really grab me. I was very excited for the movie when I heard about it, mainly because I didn't know the genres. I just knew that it was Ryan Gosling, and I love Ryan Gosling, and he played a stunt double, and that's all I knew. One thing I do want to say is Ryan Gosling looks like he's going to elevate this, as he always does. I wish I could say that for Emily Blunt, but we didn't get a lot of her in the trailer, and she's a great actor, but I just didn't get a lot of what she's bringing. And Ryan Gosling is just born for roles like these. Like, he's great in his dramatic roles, like First Man and La La Land and what have you. But things like The Nice Guys, Barbie, and where he just gets to spread his comedic roots, it is so good, and it makes for such a great performance. So I'm looking forward to that at least. So yeah, that's The Fall Guy. It's coming out March 1st. Be on the lookout for my review. All right, next up, this is a sequel that I was not looking forward to, but we got a trailer for it, and let's see what I thought. That movie is Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. This is a sequel in the long line of long movie titles of the Planet of the Apes franchise. I believe it's like a sort of sequel to the recent trilogy that we got, just many, many years later, after the reign of Caesar and all that. And this follows a new set of apes building their empire and the problems that come within their group and their kingdom. And yeah, like I said, I was not looking forward to this because I thought the trilogy was amazing and you just shouldn't touch it. And when I heard that they were doing another one, it just felt like a cash grab. And I am pleased to say that this does seem to be like it's going for something. A lot of what I saw in the trailer feels like it is treading familiar ground with the apes and how do we fit humans into our new lives with us as, or the apes as the dominant species now, and then the inner turmoil between the apes with the leader like wanting to do one thing, and then you have this group of other apes being like rebels and wanting to do something else. It reminded me a lot of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, the second one with, I believe his name was Kubo or something, or Kudo. I think it started with a K. I'm not sure. You know what? I'm gonna look that up too. Why not? So it reminded me a lot of that. So I'm not sure how much of what we're getting is going to be new per se, but Koba, that's what it was. Koba, Kubo, and the two strings. That's what I was thinking about. But yeah, so this movie, or this trailer at least, it did raise my expectations, and I am more excited than I originally was. But I want to see more of the story, because the CGI, it looks great, it looks amazing. That's all there. The performances look really cool, and the way they're setting up, like the humans being kind of cattle and things like that, that's really interesting, and I'm excited to see how they play with that. And of course, it's going to lead up to Planet of the Apes, the original, but I just want to see what more new things and new ideas they have, because right now it just feels like a lot of the old, which isn't bad if they are going to bring new things to it, but we'll see what happens. That comes out May 24th. Let's see how that pans out, especially with the actor strike. They might delay it. I don't know. But moving on to last trailer. I usually say the biggest trailer for last, or the most recent. This is neither the biggest or the most recent, but it's my favorite. This trailer came out last week, and it is directed by Zelda Williams. And if that last name rings a bell, it's because this is Robin Williams' daughter and her directorial debut, I believe. And that is Lisa Frankenstein. It stars Catherine Newton and Cole Sprouse, which, I like Zack and Cody. I haven't seen Riverdale, but the clips I've seen, I don't know how good of an actor he is right now, but who knows? Who knows? I don't want to judge. But this follows Lisa Frankenstein, a sort of new take on Frankenstein. Looks like it's set in the 80s, about this teenage girl who's lonely, wants a boyfriend, and instead of getting one, she makes one. She reanimates this long dead man, and they are now lovers and killers, and they go on this killing spree, or at least he murders, maybe for her love, I think. I absolutely loved this trailer. It looked insane in the best way. Like I said with The Fall Guy, like that felt like it didn't have a voice. This feels like it does. It knows what it's doing. It is a mix of genres, but it's doing that well, at least in the trailer, with this horror genre mixed with comedy. It feels a lot like Heathers to me. just with that 80s vibe and teenagers killing other teenagers. Um, and Catherine Newton just feels like she is having the time of her life, and that really shows on screen, which always makes for a really fun movie, which is what I'm hoping this is going to be. It comes out February 9th, for those of you who are wondering. And so, like, a good, like, Valentine's Day, like, twisted, in a way, type of movie. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. I think it looks really interesting. It looks really cool. One of the things that caught my eye was Cole Sprouse. Throughout the trailer, he, like, changes appearances. So in some senses, he looks like this disfigured monster, Frankenstein's monster type thing. And then in other places, he looks a lot more human. So I'm wondering if he does become more human as the film rolls out, or if that's just in Lisa Frankenstein's like head, and she's having like fantasy dreams, and that's what those parts are. But then in reality, he's still this like weird looking monster type dude. But yeah, Cole Sprouse also really looked like a young Johnny Depp in this trailer. I was like, whoa, that looks like a young Johnny Depp, and that looks like he did in the 80s. So if you're going for that, good job. Yeah, Edward Scissorhand type vibes. But yeah, I really like this trailer. The soundtrack choice was very cool. Very interested to see this. Zelda Williams, rest in peace, Robin Williams. Looking forward to it. February 9th. What do you think of all these trailers? Did you like them? Did you watch them? Do you not like them? I don't know. You let me know. Let me know in the comments down below. Let's move on to the main topic of today's show. And Halloween might be over right now, but that doesn't mean we can't stop talking about the horror movies. And that's because I'm talking about Five Nights at Freddy's. Yeah. This is a movie that's been in development for a long time. I want to say maybe 8 years at this point. It went between studios, directors. Chris Columbus was a director on this for a long time. And it has finally come out after years and years of development. For those of you who don't know, this is based on a video game franchise. So we get another video game movie. And it is basically a like haunted Chuck E. Cheese type place where it's this children's like pizzeria arcade restaurant, where in this the animatronics have come alive and they're evil and they're killing people, and we follow this security guard who gets a new night job at this place, and he needs to survive. You guessed it, 5 nights. Yeah, 5 Nights at Freddy's. So yeah. This movie, when I was going into it, I thought this is either going to be really good, I'm going to have a lot of fun, or it's going to be very bad, and I'm going to have a whole lot of fun. If there's not going to be any in between, I do not see this being boring. And let me tell you, it was kind of boring. Yeah, I didn't think they could do it, but they did it. So, I mean, props to you. You went above my expectations in a way. Yeah, this movie isn't that good. I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's certainly not great. And let's get into that. So, the first thing I want to talk about is this is a horror movie, and it's pretty light on the scares. There's one sequence that's in the trailers, even, of like a horror moment of people being killed and slashed and things like that, and that's like kind of violent. And that's about it. I think like the filmmakers even knew that because they threw in a few jump scares randomly, and those jump scares are very weak. And even the video game is a jump scare based game. You have to like click on cameras and like watch your power output, and if you don't, then the animatronics are gonna come and surprise you, and there's a big jump scare, and that was a big part of it. And usually I hate jump scares, but for this movie it would make sense to have it because it's calling back to the game and it's about looking over your shoulder and being surprised. But with this, like, there were only like maybe 2 or 3 jump scares, and it wasn't from any of the animatronics. It was from something else, and I know it was a reference to the game, but it wasn't effective, and it was just a cheap out jump scare. It was a fake out. And so that was very disappointing. And the rest of the movie just wasn't scary. And it wasn't even like scary on a, oh, kids are going to dig this because this is a sort of like kids type of franchise. It appeals to a lot of kids. And they're going to get a kick out of this because it's scary for them. It wasn't even scary on that level. It was just kind of there. The main plot of this movie, it follows Mike, who's played by Josh Hutcherson, and he is trying to get a job because he's taking care of his sister, and if he doesn't, he's going to lose the house and he's going to lose custody of his sister. And along the way, he also has a brother who was kidnapped in the past, and he's using his dreams to figure out what happened to his brother because he has no memory of the incident, but he believes if he like digs into his dreams, then he will like find a piece of information that will come to light, and he will be able to figure out at least who took his brother or something along those lines. And it's a lot like dream theory. And if that sounds convoluted, that's just the tip of what this movie is. A lot of this movie focuses on that family drama aspect. And a little bit is fine because, sure, you want to be connected to these characters. But this movie focuses so much on that aspect, and it doesn't even do a lot with it. It's a lot of Mike just sulking and trying to look after his sister, and his sister is like hard to take care of, and then he goes into his dream, and he tries and fails to find his brother. Which, by the way, every time he goes in his dream, he goes to one location, and going there once or twice, even 3 times, is fine. But when they go back for the 9th time in this movie, it's like, come on, please, give us something new. But I'm pretty sure this had a small budget, and whatever money they had, it probably went into the animatronics, which I'll talk about later. So they were working with a pretty small budget, and it really showed, especially when it came to the locations, because they had like 5 locations in this movie and called it a wrap, called it a day. They said no more. Jason Blum said no. You got $5 and that's it. But yeah. Let's actually go into the animatronics because that was a really good thing. Jim Henson did the animatronic work. The Jim Henson Company did like the puppetry for this movie, and it shined. It really looked great. It looked straight out from the games. I heard that whenever the animatronics are still, they are animatronics, they are puppets, but whenever they move, it's someone in a costume, and you could not tell the difference. It looked the exact same at any given point, and the way they moved, it was like a robot, but then it was also smooth at times, and it meshed really well, and so that aspect was really cool, and it really worked, and I really liked that, and I just wish we got more of the animatronics because they are barely in this movie. For being the title character, Freddy is hardly in this movie at all. Actually, there's more of a focus on the other animatronics than there is on Freddy. And even when they are on on film, they are like just standing still and they're not doing much, which is fine at first, but later on, it just, that part doesn't work because I wanted way more of them. And yeah, I don't want to go into spoilers or any specifics, but there is a certain part of this movie that came towards the end of it, and it should have been like either the midpoint of the film or much earlier on to give us a different sense of where this movie is going. So then when the animatronics start going on this killing spree and being like outwardly evil towards Mike, then it makes sense and it feels justified. Whereas in this movie, it's like the animatronics are kind of acting nice and fun, and then, oh no, they're evil again. But yeah, a big problem with this movie is the writing. It's not written particularly well, and the actors, they kind of know that because they're all trying to rise above it, especially Josh Hutcherson. He's trying his best, but for the main character, he's getting probably the worst dialogue out of anyone. Elizabeth Lale is also in it. She plays a cop who like kind of knows what's going on, but she's not really letting out how much she does know, and her whole role is so convoluted. And it does make sense for the gains and everything, but yeah, Matthew Lillard has he has a role in the movie. He's at the beginning and then he disappears, and I wanted so much more of him because he knew exactly what he had to do for this movie and what kind of movie he was in, and he was hamming it up. He was having such a great time in this movie, and whenever he was on it, I was having a good time, but he was barely in it for someone who was supposed to be this big character. But yeah, a lot of this movie goes into the backstory of the characters and the animatronics. It goes into the lore, and the games are very lore heavy. But if you want to look at the first game was this like survival horror game where you're just trying to survive the night. And then the later games went into the lore, and I wish that's what this movie was. I wanted just a fright fest, maybe some allusions to what some of the lore was, because there's a whole thing about dead children possessing these puppets, and they go way into that, way more than I thought. And I would have been fine with like hints and allusions to that, but they focus way more on that than the actual horror aspect of it. And if you want to be a horror movie, a lot of horror is the mystery and the unknown of that. And then when you just reveal it all at once, it deflates a lot of the tension that you get. And that happens in this movie. So when we figure out, oh, it's all just kids, you like, they are a lot less frightening than they could be. And that it's unfortunate. I know a lot of fans of the game are going to like this. They're going to have a good time, mainly because of the lore, and it's going to be accurate to the story of the games. But it should be a horror movie. It should be a horror movie first, because that's what it's being marketed as, and that's what it is. But it's way more focused on getting this convoluted story out, when it would have been so much better to, because they are going to have sequels, to just parse it out in each sequel and have like individual stories that make sense and are effective in their scares while still giving a good story. But with this, they were just trying to do a lot, and then that made the scares take a backseat. So yeah, I'm not very high on this movie. It's not the worst thing in the world, especially because a lot of the family drama stuff, it's not awful. Some of the things are effective, especially like the relationship between Mike and his sister. But the rest of it, yeah, I just wanted something more from this movie. I don't want to say better, because that just feels a little rude to say, but just I hope in the sequels, because they are going to have sequels, that they do make more of an emphasis on the horror in it. And I'm not even talking about violence and gore, because there shouldn't be violence and gore in this, or there should be violence, but not like gore and blood. Because these movies are aimed at a children's audience too. Not saying that older audiences won't like it, but a lot of it are made up of children. And it should be scary for them, while also providing scares for older and more mature audiences too. It should be a mix of the two, which has been done before and has been done very effectively. Look at Monster House, Nightmare Before Christmas. All those stop motion horror movies like Coraline and, not Frankenweenie, but Paranorman. Take a page out of their book. And yeah, I really wanted to like this. I even tried, like, after I watched it, I was like, was that good? Like, was it? Did I like it? I don't know. But after watching it and taking a few days to, like, let it sink in, yeah, I'm not a huge fan of this film. The director of it, Emma Tammy, she does a great job of doing what she can. She comes from a lot of like indie horror roots, and that does show in a lot of what she's doing. It does feel like indie. It has an indie feel, which I do like. It's interesting, it's cool, but with the writing, there's only really so much you can do with the material that you're given. And yeah, I guess I'll end it there because I don't want to keep repeating myself. But yeah, it just wasn't that scary. And the characters, they could have made up for it, but they weren't well written either. And so what you're given is just this mediocre film that had a lot more potential. But yeah, it is what it is. We'll see what happens next time. To give the score, I'd probably give it maybe a 47 out of 146, something around there. Not the worst, but not the best. It's on Peacock, so go watch it if you want. See it in the theater if you want to. I don't know. I know a lot of people are. It's made a lot of money, but yeah. Have you seen the film? Did you like it more than me? I hope you did. But if you haven't, are you gonna watch it? Let me know in the comments on YouTube. So yeah, that'll do it for today's episode. I'm sorry for being a little bit of a downer today, but yeah, Lisa Frankenstein, that was a good trailer. Go check that one out. You can follow me at That's a Wrap NCR on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, which is probably where you're watching this right now, because Spotify and iTunes, that's giving me a little trouble lately. But yeah, next week will be more of an Oscars week. I will be discussing The Holdovers, which I already saw, and I'm very much looking forward to discussing my thoughts, and Priscilla, the new Elvis movie, but from Priscilla's point of view. I'm really excited to see that movie and seeing where it comes out, especially with Sofia Coppola directing. So that's going to be really cool. It's going to be an Oscars week. Hopefully a lot better than this week. But until then, that's a wrap.